Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining our session today about the DevOps course Community Edition. And just for your information, this session is recorded. So I would, just to get your approval, or you will leave. You have to leave the session if you don't agree about getting recording. Okay, so our session today, we will talk about again our DevOps course Community Edition, and then just to give you an overview about that. So all our information will be on GitHub on the repository for the DevOps course, which is DevOps Step by Step under my account. And to just give you an overview about the course, we have the course in two editions, what we call the community edition, which has all the information, like all the source and labs and outlines, and also the enterprise edition. I would recommend going and visiting the GitHub repo to get more information. So this session will be presented by two of our community member, which is Mahmoud Shaheen and Abdel Halim Zaki, and they will present, all the topics. And we're working as a team, and they are, part of our community and contributors on the GitHub repo. So yeah, so let me hand over the session for them. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Just 1 second. I'm sharing my screen. Sorry.
Sure.
Yes, hello, everybody. So today we are going to explain the DevOps Steps by Steps Community Edition. Halim and myself will present it with the following agenda. So right now, this is our current agenda. We are going to have an overview about the software development lifecycle. Then we are going to
Just 1
discuss
second, Mahmoud. I can see your screen. Are you sharing your screen?
1 second, please.
Yeah, sure.
Is it visible now?
Yes, I can see myself. That's great.
And
But,
now?
uh,
Okay, sorry. 1 second.
no problem.
Is it visible now?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. So sorry for that. So now it's working. So again, now myself and Abdel Halim are going to go through this agenda. So we are going to have an overview about the software development lifecycle. After that, we are going to discuss the Agile and compare it with the Waterfall model. After that, we are going to discuss the DevOps engineering prerequisites, which is like how to be a DevOps engineer. Then we will take some concepts about the virtualization, then moving to the code quality. And finally, we will go through our DevOps GitHub. Okay, so let's start now with the first module, which is related to the software development lifecycle. So this is, as most of you know, so we have somehow those software development lifecycle stages. So it starts with the requirements. Requirements here, they cover the scope of work. Sorry, can you see my screen or?
Sorry, no, it's I think it's just like gets, like smalled or
And now?
no.
1 second.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, is it visible now?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, so we will start with the requirement stage, which is the first one. So this one defines the scope of work and the product features. And also we have the design, which is the second item in design, which covers the product architecture, including and not limited to the integration, security, the UI and UX of the product if you are building a web application. And also it will have one outcome, which is HLD, which is the high level design document, which is considered somehow like a contract between the product team and the software team. Then now we have somehow the requirements clarified, we have the design and everything is clear. The development is the third phase, which is the implementation itself. Okay, so in the develop stage, which is the implementation phase, it includes also the unit testing. In addition, we have the testing, which is the end-to-end covering the functional and the non-functional requirements. And we will go into details later on. Finally, now we have our application deployed and it's up and running. So we have the maintenance part, which is related to the software upgrades, repairs, and fixes. So this is like, in summary, the software development website. Now we are going to discuss the application overview. So we have some types of applications, right? So most of us, if you went through the software development, you either develop maybe console application, desktop application, mobile application, web application. So all of them will serve the business need for sure. So the point is, those applications, this is the most important thing. So all of those types can be integrated with each other. This is as some applications can expose APIs. The APIs are the application programmable interface, and they will allow your product or application to communicate with other products and services without having to know how they are implemented. And this is the beauty of the things. We can give a quick example of the API. For example, now, as you know, we have a huge event worldwide, which is the World Cup. So now you have a visa, right? You applied for the tourism visa. So when you go to the airport, how can you validate in the airport that this visa is valid or not? So here the Ministry of Tourism, as an example in Qatar, they expose an API. It's true, you can enter. Of course, it will not allow you to enter. This is just an example. Okay. Now, the next concept that we need to be aware of, which is the compilation. So now I have a software. Let's say we are building an application using .NET. So what will happen now? Now, this .NET application, which is based on the C# as an example, we need to compile it. Compile it means to transfer this source code, which is a human readable language, to a compiled executable format. So in our case here, we have the exe format, which is the executable format for the C#. And also we have, for example, jar file if you are using Java. So based on the use technology that you are preferring, you will have the executable format. And this format is very important to be aware of, because in the CI/CD, when you do the DevOps, you will package your application and deploy it based on the format. You will take the right action. Okay, so this is now an example for the executable format for the Windows. So now if you have a Windows application, so this one, can you mute, please? Somebody has a noise from his side. Okay, so now this is like the Skype application. As you see, this is now in Windows. So it's exe format and you have DLL. What's the idea now of the DLL itself? So this is the dynamic link library. As you know, now we have an important concept in software engineering, which is don't repeat yourself and don't reinvent the wheel. So now when you build the business logic, you build your code, it's very important to package the reusable code so that you can use it later on, right? So now I can build my own, I can have my code, I can package it, I can make it as a library, and then in another situation, I will need the same code. For example, let's say I have a service that's sending an email. So instead of building every time the same service, I can just import or use this library for my future development. So now you have the exe and you have DLL. DLL is not executable, okay, but exe is executable. So this means the exe can depend on the DLL, but DLL alone is useless. You need to use it in your application. Okay, so now we talked now about what? So now I have an application, I write this code, I can have it as a library, I can import this library in another application. And the point is now we have the concept of the package manager. So for .NET, we have something called Nuget. Nuget is the package manager that's designed to enable you to do two key things. For sure, you can do more, but here we focus a lot in the concept itself. So here it allows you to share your reusable code there, so you can push your code there so that others can make use of it. Also, it will allow you to consume others' code. For example, there is one library which is called Humanizer that allows you to translate the milliseconds to human readable format. For example, if you put 1 million millisecond, it will tell you how many weeks, how many days, and so on. So instead of building this logic from my side, I can go to Nuget and import, or you can say download the package and use it within my code. So this is the summary of the Nuget. So the conclusion here is that instead of building from scratch, this Nuget will let the developers to leverage the entire ecosystem and take care of the word ecosystem, because in software industry, we have ecosystem. When you became part of this ecosystem, like you can say your development quality, your development speed will be better. Okay, so now we have this entire ecosystem we can build on the top of the existing solutions. Okay, now moving to the demos. So our GitHub is full of demos, and the point is, as Muhammad Radwan said before, multiple times, by reading 1,000 books, you will not be able to, about driving, you will not be able to drive a car. So what's the conclusion of that? Without practicing, the theoretical information will not strengthen you. So you need to practice. So here those are some, you can say, demos that you can find in our GitHub. So you will build like somehow a console application, desktop application. You will develop API application and also class library for a calculator. This is an example. This calculator allows you to do some methods. Some methods like, for example, the smallest, the largest, the average, and other methods you can add from your side if you want more methods. But the point is you will practice and have this software, this code at your end. Okay. And then you have now the code. You can make it as library, as a DLL, and then you can import this library in a new project and use it immediately without writing the same code again. So now you have the look and feel. You experience that by yourself, and you will learn by experience. Moving next, so now we have APIs. You have RESTful APIs. Also, you will have an application that will call another application via API, and you will package your application and deploy it in the IIS, okay, which is the web server related to Microsoft technologies. And we will package our application and push it to Nuget. So now you have somehow the idea of how the software development is done via a simple solution. And based on that, you will have somehow the way forward, okay? So this is the things related to the software development lifecycle. Now we can move to the next thing, which is the Agile. Okay, so now in our agenda for the module 2, which is related to Agile, we have Waterfall versus Agile. We have the requirements engineering and backlog, and demos in action again. So here demos, you will find demos with most of our modules are available because this is very important. Okay, so now we are seeing again the same software development lifecycle that we discussed before, right? So we have requirements, design, implementation, testing, and maintenance. Okay, so what's the difference between Waterfall and Agile, and what's Waterfall? So in Waterfall, you are doing the same software development lifecycle, but the point is they are sequential. Sequential really means there is a dependency. You will not go to stage 2 or phase 2 unless the phase 1 is done. I cannot start the design without having the requirements done. I cannot do the implementation without having the design, and so on. So what's the key drawback for something like that? The key drawback is that you as a product owner or as a customer, you will see the product at the end of the whole solution. Okay, what will this cause? Well, I mean, what will this somehow, why this is not a good thing? Because at the end, you will see at the end, this means lack of insights you don't see. At the end, you can come to me and say, hey, this is not what I am expecting. This will lead to frustration, delays, and will harm the time to market. And time to market is here is a key factor that differentiates the companies from each other. Okay, that's good. So what happened after that? They now we have the agile concept. The agile concept is very powerful because of two key things. It's flexible and fast. So this means now in software development lifecycle, now we have continuous iterations, incremental outputs. So now let's say we have 100 features for product X that we are developing. So now we can take the first 10 features as an iteration. We can have the next 10 feature, the next 15 feature. We can plan it in iterations, and each iteration will have the same software development lifecycle. So if we are building an e-commerce application, as an example, we can have the part related to view the products and adding to cart. This is like, you can say view product or add product, or for example, the login or the sign in, the user management. You can split your project into phases, and you can have, for example, the user management as one of the epics or one, and then we can have the full iteration into it. Okay. What's also powerful here is that because you can see the output faster, you can see the errors, you can detect the errors faster, and you can get them fixed. And also, this will give early and frequent opportunities to make decisions. So here you have the flexibility to change the priorities and move forward in the right way. Okay, so now we have the requirements engineering, okay, and the backlog. So now we have the product feature. We have, for example, some features. We will have something called product backlog. This one has the to-do feature. It's like to-do list. And this one, from it, we can have the sprint backlog, which is like a subset, or you can say the short term for the requirement itself. And based on that, we can have our epics, we can have our stories. And the good thing here is that we need always, when we go through our journey in the DevOps, step by step here, is that you need to understand always the reason behind, and you need to understand the core value of each principle. So here, from this diagram that you can see, we need to understand, for example, which stages here or which concepts are related to which organizational hierarchy. For example, what do the top management people focus on? And we have the portfolio team, we have the program team, and the agile team, and so on. So who is focusing on the stories and how long the stories should take? What about the epics? Like how many epics can we have, and so on? Those things we are going to learn within the DevOps step-by-step course. So the agile demos in action. So we have 3 demos. The first one is related to the requirement documents. We will have SRS, which is the requirement document. We can bring SRS from the web. You can search for it by yourself and have a sample. And based on that, you can also create Azure DevOps account. And you, in our DevOps GitHub, you will see somehow some URLs telling you how to have a free DevOps account and how can you build, organize, and how to move forward with such demos. So you will go to add an organization, you will create project, epic stories, and you will experience it by yourself. So if you don't experience it by yourself, you will not have the deep understanding that we want everybody in the community to have. So now I guess it's time to move to my colleague Halim, and he's going to explain this module 3. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mahmoud. And now it's time to explore more about the DevOps Engineer prerequisites. So in the following slide, as we can see, there's certain topics we will take care of today. At first, we will start with the DevOps disciplines, tools and platform that made for DevOps. What are the knowledge that DevOps should have in each level? What make the DevOps T-shape and what is the I-shape? What are the KPIs? And we will take an example, lead time versus cycle time. So jobs and roles in SDLC and DevOps disciplines. Next. As we can see in this slide, there's a lot of roles that cover the software development lifecycle. And as a DevOps, we have 8 disciplines to cover it as well. But in the plan, we have, like, for example, in the plan, we have the Scrum Master, Product Manager, Program Manager, and as a test engineer, we have a QA and test. And as a coder, we have the front-end developer, back-end developer and full stack developer and so on. And to be able to cover lots of roles across the SDLC, it's really a hard job as a DevOps. So we need to be a T-shaped. What that mean, we will know in the next slide. Next. So first, we will have a glimpse. We will have a, a glimpse over the tools that we have inside the DevOps. And as we can see in the build, we have Jenkins, we have TeamCity, and in the collaboration, we have Git and GitHub. So there's a lot of tools, and nobody will ever have the time to be at the top level of each tool. But what we can do that we enhance our knowledge in each discipline. So if we know how to use um, the tools itself, it will be easier to learn other tools as well in the future. So to build CIC, to build a CI pipeline, for example, and you are looking for a low-cost tool, so you might take Jenkins as an example of open source and low cost for your project. But if you're looking for compatibility, you can go for Azure DevOps. Uh, and the picture presented next, it's just an example of the tools that can serve you. So the practice and principle across the disciplines, as a DevOps engineer, you'll need to have a bit of knowledge in each discipline to be able to have the full picture in the SDLC. So, for example, as an entry level or a DevOps engineer, you should have knowledge about backlog prioritization, sprint backlog, and so on. So, and by the time you have more experience in the field, you will gain more knowledge in each aspect. And that's what's called T-shaped scale. So as you can see, we cover a cross-functional skills with domain knowledge. So we will have a bit of knowledge in the planning, a bit of knowledge in the code, build, test, and package. But the experience itself or the domain knowledge will vary from a discipline to another. So, for example, I'm from a developer background, so I will have more knowledge at the code than the build, for example, or the test, and that present variant of experience, and by time I will grow more experience and so on. And can you go next? And the DevOps logo that present the infinity as an infinity cycle, an infinity agile cycle that go all over the 8 disciplines of the DevOps. So I must have the knowledge to be able to implement the software development lifecycle. And in the following slide, next, in the following slide, is an example of the experience of each DevOps engineer should have in variant level. So as a DevOps engineer, I'm just starting. So in the build, I have more experience than testing and than planning. Then if I become a senior and I have more experience in the field, I will have more knowledge at build. I have more knowledge now at planning and so on. And if I become an architect, that means I have to cover more and more experience in every aspect. So being a DevOps engineer is about being a good T-shaped. You need to be up to date. You need to have a lot of knowledge in every aspect. And that's different from the software developers, for example, and we present them by the I-shape. The I-shape, the I-shape example is having the most knowledge in one only of the disciplines that we have. So as a coder, I don't need like the knowledge of having how to configure or provision the servers, but I need my knowledge to be at the best at coding because this is what I do. I'm developing the applications themselves. So that's the difference between becoming a software developer and a DevOps engineer. DevOps engineer is needed in many aspects in the company, maybe provisioning the servers, creating the pipelines, creating some automated tests, and so on. So with the next, right now, how to measure if we are doing DevOps in the right way. That's why we have the KPIs. KPIs are some metrics that allow us to measure the DevOps disciplines and practices and what we do. For example, we have the cycle time, lead time, and these are like some of the examples that for the KPIs themselves that we have. And we will take an example and visualize it. And that will be cycle time versus lead time and frequency of deployment. Let's go next. So this is the backlog. This is like our stories, as Mahmoud said earlier. So we have a feature one and feature two. And right now, developer one will start working on feature one and move it to the code, then the test, then production. Developer two will do the same thing. He will start working on it, move it to the code, test, then production. So right now, what present the lead time? The lead time is the time it took me from the plan till it came up to the production. It can take days, it can take hours, it can take months. Also, the cycle time is, sorry, Mahmoud, next. So the cycle times is the part since the developers start working on that feature. So I start coding already in feature one till I got it to production. This is called the cycle time. But what about the frequency of deployment? The frequency of deployment is how many time we release new features or have new features to the light and the end users can explore them and use them already. Next. Then we will go over and discuss one more important topic that it's virtualization. And we will start that by what is virtualization? Then we will discuss two types of virtualization, which is virtual machines and containers. Then we will go to some demos in action to have practice over the virtual machines. So what is virtualization? Can you go next? What is virtualization? That's actually a great question. Given that we use virtualization every day when they access the cloud, most of the time, like most of the time, all the cloud or like all the websites that you trying to access every day are most probably hosted on a cloud environment. And virtualization is offering a solution because today computers have tons of processing power, including fast CPU, tons of RAM, a lot of unused capacity of storage, and by having a lot of components or hardware components are not used, virtualization offer a solution by utilizing the unused component to create virtual machines. And virtualization is only the layer between the virtual machine that user can use and the hardware component. Virtualization can, you can create a lot of virtual machines, depend on your component. For example, if we have a server that has 100 gigabyte of RAM, you can divide that to 4 virtual machines. Each one of them have 25, 20 25 gigabyte of RAM, and so on. So by helping us utilizing the hardware component, is that only what virtualization provide? Actually, it's not. We will go to the first type of virtualization. Can you go next? So we will go over the first type of virtualization that we have today, and which is virtual machine. So virtual machine is built upon, we will talk about the architecture. So we will have our hardware component, then we will have our host operating system, then we will have our virtualization layer that will utilize our uh, hardware component that we didn't use yet. And we can, as we can see in the slide, we will set up 3 virtual machines. Each virtual machine will provide us with a get operating system that we can build our application inside. So the first thing that virtual machines offer is a security, since each virtual machine is totally separated from the other one. And also it provide me with the variety. So the host machine, let's say, for example, it's a Windows machine. Then I want to build few virtual machines. So in virtual machine 1, I can run Ubuntu. I can run another Windows machine on virtual machine 2. And in virtual machine 3, I can run an old legacy Windows that support my application. For example, I want to run Windows 7. So my application is most compatible with Windows 7. So it provides me with the area that I can work with multiple solutions and multiple situations. So if there is any downsides to the virtual machines, actually there are. And because virtual machines can take a lot of space. So because I need to install first a host operating system, then on top of that, I will set up my operating system for each virtual machine, so it takes a lot of space. On the other hand, containers provide you with a leverage of handling the operation system on the virtualization level. So containers are type of virtualization as well, but it's lightweight software packages that contain all the dependencies to run your software inside the container, and it can run instantly. So if I want to just launch my application right now, I can run it into a container and put it on any cloud provider that support containerization. So let's take it a step further and explore virtual machines. So in this, we will learn in the next demos that we can create and explore virtual machines locally on your local machine. So this is, for example, we will take Windows. So HyperV is a kind of software virtualization technology that can help you to make virtual machine faster by providing you a gallery that have tons of image that can build fast. So in the first demo, we will examine Windows 11 virtual machine from the gallery. Then we will examine Ubuntu virtual machine from the gallery. And to explore more, we will have a different version and explore what's the difference between Ubuntu 20.4 and what is and 18.4. So we will have a demo for this one and a demo for the other one. And at the end, we will have to explore more about virtualization. So we will create a Windows 10 from an ISO, but this will give us the ability to create the virtual machine from the scratch. We will create everything. We will assign the memory, we will assign the hard disk, we will assign we will assign the hard disk. For example, I want that virtual machine to only utilize 50 gigabyte of hard disk from my main machine. So you will assign everything from your hardware component by doing it manually by creating it from an ISO file. And all of these demos are presented also in our GitHub. All of the demos you will see today are in our GitHub, and we will go with that at the end. So I will hand it next to my colleague Mahmoud to explore more about the code quality.
Yeah, so thank you, Halim. So right now, as Halim said during this part, that we have the T-shape. So the T-shape here is important because the DevOps engineer is interacting with the full software lifecycle. So for example, now, if you don't have any experience in unit testing, you don't know what's unit testing, how can you define in your pipeline to have, for example, automation for the unit testing? So here we need always to be exposed horizontally to many domains and focus vertically, or you can say go in depth for the related topics that we are going to explain as per the GitHub community that we have. So for the code quality, now we are going to explain the unit testing and the code coverage. We have also something important, which is called the static and dynamic analysis. It's good to understand the difference between them. And also we will have some demos. So let's start. So the code quality, the unit testing part. So it's type of the software testing. It focuses on the components of the software product. So now I have a software, it has multiple features. Those features are somehow implemented into components. So we need to ensure that every unit in our software works as expected, which means it doesn't provide error. So with no errors, this is the work as expected. So a unit itself, it can be a function, method, subroutine. It depends on the programming language that you use. For example, in Golang, you can have subroutine methods in Java, function in .NET, and you can have different things. But the point is, who is the one who's creating the unit testing? This is the developer. So the developer during the coding phase, he will use the unit testing and he will implement the unit testing methods and such things. And this is important in the automated testing. So when you go deeper in the course or in the community edition, you will find the proper section that's explaining this into details. Okay, so now I have my code, I have my unit testing, but we have also here a very important KPI, which is the code quality. The code coverage. The code coverage here is the measure of your unit testing. You can measure your unit testing using this code coverage. So it's a metric that determines the number of lines of code that are successfully validated. So now I have the calculator example, since we mentioned it in the beginning. So I have, for example, 4 methods. So if we have unit testing for 3 of them, this means your code coverage is 75%. So when you realize that your code coverage is 75% here, you can revise yourself and increase this percent by adding more methods to improve the quality. Okay. So the point is, when you have a good unit testing, this will detect defects easily. So this means the more test cases, this will lead to less defects. And also we have an important point, which is the code coverage itself. If you have 100% code coverage, does this mean that your application is safe? No, because you might have, yes, unit testing for each method that you have in your code and your coverage is 100%, but maybe you are not covering the whole business logic validation itself. So we will see this in the next slide. So here the conclusion is having great code coverage doesn't mean that you have great unit test cases, but the opposite is the correct thing, which is having great unit test cases or having great unit test code coverage. Having great unit test will result of having a great code coverage. This is why now we are discussing the static analysis and dynamic analysis. The static analysis and dynamic analysis, this is happening into your code. So the static is done on the source code itself before running the application. So before running, I will know that I'm covering 70%, 90%, 97%, it depends. So this analysis is done against the code itself, and it will help us to detect the code vulnerability, code smells, and so on. Okay, so it will help in reducing the potential production issues for sure. But here, let's see what's the dynamic analysis. So dynamic analysis is running, you can say it's executed and examining the application during and after the program is running. So it's related to the runtime itself. So it can validate the business logic. And this is very important to be in the safe side. So it addresses the runtime vulnerability that occurred due to the variation in the business context. Moving to the demos, so we will have here 3 important demos. You will create unit tests for the class library that you already created, and take care that the demos are put in sequence. So they depend on each other, so don't skip any of them. So then you will explain and examine the code coverage and code metrics. And also we have another demo which is related to the UI test and run it. So right now, this is the conclusion. So the conclusion is that we have discussed the software development lifecycle, and we saw the stages and the phases. Then we checked the Agile, and we understood the difference between Agile and Waterfall, and what are the advantages of the Agile and how it's flexible and fast. Also, we understood the DevOps prerequisites and the different technologies and depths of knowledge, the T-shape, the I-shape. We discussed the virtualization because it's one of the basic concepts that we will depend into it later on. Also, the code quality, which is part of the software development lifecycle, and all of them are within the DevOps step-by-step GitHub as highlighted here. So now I'm handing over again to Halim. So thank you.
So right now we will have only 3 topics that we will discuss, but be on the right track. If you visit our DevOps step-by-step repo, you will notice that we have the Advanced Introduction to DevOps course. And inside that, you will have the course outlines, the course demos, the course preparation point. So in the next session, we will discuss more with you, more modules with you. So if you want to prepare to the next session, you need to be on the right track. And more exploration, since our repo have a lot of useful information that you can use. So having more exploration about the demos, about everything that in our repo, that will be awesome. So, and at the end, we will discuss what are the rules and how to ask a question in the GitHub if you want to get in touch with us. If you have an issue with one of the demos, maybe if you want to ask about anything, you can go and open an issue within our rules and our contribution culture. I will share my screen right now, and we will surf a bit in the GitHub repo. So is my screen
Yeah.
All right. So here's our DevOps step-by-step repo. At first, you will have advanced introduction to DevOps, and there's some topics inside them. We will review them right now. So I want to mention first the course preparation point if you want to go over what we discussed today and go over and prepare for the next sessions as well. So let's go to the first one. Here you will find all our 18 modules. So in each module, you will have an article and a video. For example, module 1 right now, I have an article about Backlog if you want to know more info about it, and a video as well. And each topic we discussed today, you will have a lot of information and resources that you can have a lot of useful information from. So you can go all over here. We have discussed till module 2 today. So you can go over it and refresh your information as well. And for the next session, you can prepare from 2 to 3 modules. So for example, for the next session, you should prepare for Module 3, Introduction to Cloud, and Module 4, Tooling for DevOps. And maybe if we have time, we will also go over the evolution of computing options. So from 2 to 3 modules for each session would be awesome preparation to have in advance questions that you want to ask. So second, we will have our course demos and course outlines, sorry, the outcome of our demos. So here at Introduction to Agile and DevOps, we have no demos at all. But in Module 2, Application Development Lifecycle, these are explaining what the outcome you should have from each demo. So by the time you finish the demo, you should compare your outcome with the suggested outcome in our GitHub. So if you have the similar outcome, you have done it. You have done it right. But if you have any problem, you can ask us by opening an issue after, and we will go over that in a second.
Yeah.
Also, oh yeah, this is the lesson outcomes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and you can find here also the demo and labs for each module. If you want to also go ahead and start practicing, maybe you have more free time, so you want to prepare for module 3 and practice the demos for module 3 as well. So you can go module 3 and then start exploring what is the demos and what is also you will learn in this demo. And at the end, if you have a problem while practicing or making the demos that's suggested in the GitHub repo, you can always go to the issues, but we have a contribution culture and rules for asking questions. So if you go to issues, there's a pinned question right here, or a pinned issue. So going inside of that, if there is any rules for writing a question, and there is a step-by-step guide giving you the guidelines you should follow when asking a question to help you faster, that you should make your question determine about the point, and also you make it visible and have a title and have a good body that everybody can read and deliver the answer for your issue ASAP. Also, you can review our contribution culture if you want to take it a step further and contribute with us inside our repo. You can find it here. Inside the contribution, there is the contribution culture. You can review it if you want to take it a step forward and contribute in our community as well. These are the guidelines that you should follow as well when you want to contribute. And I will hand it over to Muhammad Radwan.
Yes, thank you so much, Abdelhalim and Mahmoud. I think that was really great explanation for the session. And again, it was a high overview about, the first three modules, and we will, doing that for other modules. So again, it's a community work, which means that we are very open to hear your questions, to help you. Again, just ask the question, try to participate, try to contribute, and we are here. That's it. I think it's just like maybe this is a time for questions. So if there is anyone has any question. Any questions? Yeah, yeah, come on, please. Just yes, open the mic and speak.
Okay, good evening from here. This is
Good
Mekus from Nigeria.
Hello, Mikas.
All right. This my question. I have seen the GitHub link, and I must commend you guys for such a wonderful contributions, and it's quite rich for anyone that want to delve into DevOps.
Thank
I
you.
want to ask, So yeah, do you have like any kind of recommendations for someone that is trying to maybe take a certification exam in any DevOps field? That's just the question I have.
Yeah. Would you like to answer, Abdul Halim or Mahmoud? Yes, it's
Sorry, the question is related to the certification, right?
yes, he asking about recommendation for certificate. Do you think like recommended some certificate, or is this right, Nikos?
Yes, that's all right.
Yeah. So do you have, I mean, let's discuss together even like, for example, you, Mahmoud Shaheen, do you prefer like having certificates, or what do you think? And Abdul Halim as well. So let's start with Mahmoud Shaheen.
Yeah, sure. So from my perspective, certificates are not that essential, but they are beneficial in terms of exposing you to the wide variety of information. For example, the certificate, which is related to, for example, Azure DevOps, it will take you to a lot of topics that the vendor itself wants you to know. For example, now I'm working using AWS as an example. Maybe without the certificate, I will not be exposed to SNS or, for example, their queue system or their database as a service. What are they providing, and so on. So it's situational, but usually certificates also add values to their holders. So I recommend certification from my perspective.
So yes, so the question here, what do you recommend? Do you have like any preferences for what do you recommend for certificate, or?
Okay, so the answer here is in general, right? You are talking about certificates in general. From my side, I recommend the CKAD, the Certified Kubernetes Application Developer. And if you want to go more into depth for the administration part, we have the CKA, Certified Kubernetes Administrator. Those two are very important for the containers orchestration. I highly recommend them. The second thing for the cloud itself, for example, if you are interested to learn about one cloud like AWS or Azure or whatever, maybe GCP, I recommend to take the architecture certificate and the developer certificate for sure. We cannot have one recommendation that can fit all of us here. It depends what's your position and what's your goal. Some people, maybe the developer certification will not fit with them because they are more into business. So here you can take different type of certificates. Yeah, so this is my answer.
Yeah, thank you. And do you have any comments? Yeah.
Yeah, so I will take it from here, and if you look in, I will go to the Azure side a bit. So depend on your level. If you want to have a start, easy 900 is a good start to have the fundamentals about the cloud. Since I don't know about your background, then if you want to take it a step forward, there is the easy 102. That's for the developers, and there is easy 104. That's for the administration level. And if you want to go further and have more knowledge, there is the certificate at Easy 400. And Easy 400 as well is a part of our GitHub repo. You should expect future updates about it if you want to get more depth into Easy 400 especially. And Easy 400 is like give you the advanced level of being an expert DevOps engineer by Microsoft.
Yeah, that's exactly.
So that's it.
Thank you. Yes, I think I agree with Abdul Halim and Mahmoud about that. It, again, certificates are just also showing that you are also, keen to learn new things and you are developing your skills. So I would recommend as well to, yes, but it's always a plus. Okay, is there any other question? Any other question or? Yes, come on, TOC.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, my name is TOC. I'm from Nigeria, but presently in the Netherlands. Okay. My question is simple. I just wanted to ask. To be a DevOps engineer, must you know coding? Is coding part of the requirements? Is it compulsory you must know coding, or you can be a DevOps engineer and like skip that part off and know some other aspects apart from coding? Thank you.
Okay, no problem. So, I mean, Tuosi is asking about if you can skip the code part of the DevOps, or what do you think about that?
Well, you are in the software development industry. Nobody can skip the coding. So despite of that, as we mentioned earlier, the T-shaped scale, yes, you need to know what is the code and how the code works, because at some point you need to troubleshoot the code that you have in your pipeline, but you will never be able to do that if you don't know what are the code, what are the function, what are the structure that in front of you. So no, you can't skip the code in general, but as a part of DevOps engineer, you are not interacting that very much with coding, like software engineers, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I can add also one thing on the top what Liam said. So I strongly agree with him. But the point is, um, like for the software developers, they take care of more details, like maybe the
Exactly.
design patterns that will be used, how is the architecture from inside, the performance. So such things you're not obligated to go into
Exactly.
depth, but at least you need to know the fundamental. Why you need to know the fundamental? I have just one simple example. So now if we have a Node.js application and you don't know how the Node.js will be executed, maybe, or you are deploying it and then there is a missing library, but you don't know, for example, now in our today's session, we mentioned that we have exe, we have DLL, you remember, for the .NET. So if you don't know this and there is a missing DLL and you are building your pipeline, how can you troubleshoot, as Halim said? So at least you can know the fundamental. Fundamental mean like the helicopter view, understanding the inputs, the outputs, some basics. This will let you survive, but for sure, the more you know, your life will be easier with the know, with the more you know. Otherwise, you might stuck a little bit.
Yeah. Exactly. And to add on that, on top of that, if you're working with infrastructure as code, especially building a platform, like, so I mean, there is some platform engineer or DevOps engineer where they only focus on, building platforms. So all your job will be writing an infrastructure as code and running a pipeline. So as Mahmoud said, I think this is the like you are not like focusing on design pattern or complex development, but it is part of the job. The same for network, for example. If I am coming from development background, but I still, needs, I still need to learn about network, about, um, the most important part of the network as well, because again, it's a T-shaped, and it require a lot of, skills across all the disciplines. Okay, well, while we can't hear you if you are talking, you are in mute.
Hi, Mahmoud. Hi,
Hello.
Zaki, and hi, Radwan.
Hello.
No.
Hello.
My questions a bit around the two previous questions asked. My case is I've been a storage person, a networking person, a sysadmin person, but I can't just figure out how to go dive deep into coding. Um, I don't know. I wish I can get a fundamental of how it works. I've stumbled upon so many videos, but maybe because of such background I have, I find it difficult to apprehend how the coding works. Um, I just try to do simple stuff. I get it done, but I still don't understand the basics.
Yeah,
How do you recommend and what do you recommend in this instance? Thank you.
no problem. Thank you. Mahmoud, would you like to?
Yeah. Okay, that's good. So my understanding now for this scenario is that you try to learn the basics, right? And you tried some simple applications, right? Is this understanding correct? I just want to verify because this will affect my answer.
I think
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
carry on, please.
Okay, that's good. So the point is, the idea of the demos, if you remember in our session today, like we have calculator demo. So we can make more complex demos, but at the end, simple demo will be somehow enough at your starting stage, or even if you are going deeper. See, the point is to understand the process end to end. You get my point. So as also Rodwan said before, we do the pipeline manually, then we will appreciate the automation and we will understand the value of the automation. Similarly, also for the code, you shouldn't go that deep. You get my point. You will not do, for example, algorithms and you enhance the performance from order of n or n squared to, for example, order of 1. You are not responsible for that. But just you need to understand. For example, now I'm working in another organization. They are using Java instead of .NET, right? At least I need to understand what's Maven, the package manager. See, the point is, if we understood the concept, it will be same for different technologies. So now we have package manager in .NET, which is Nuget. And by the way, my background is not .NET, it's Java. But when I took the course with Ridwan, when he said Nuget, it was my first time to know about it, by the way. So this happens. You got my point. But the point, I related it with the Maven. So I understand this is a package manager, this is a package manager. Here you have dependencies, here you manage dependencies. So the concept is similar. You got my point. So just you need to understand the concept and you will find everything is running around it.
Yeah, so your recommendation is, do you have any like direct recommendation for him to start? Because he's struggling to start.
Okay, so what language have you started with? Or what language do you know for the moment?
So I'm just a Linux person, but I'm trying to pick a Python.
Okay, that's good. So now you're trying to pick the Python. This is because you need it at work, or this is like personal preference?
Yeah, for development in what's it called? The DevOps. I find it as a prerequisite. So
I got your point. So my recommendation is to understand the basic of it. For example, in Python, they have also, for example, classes, they have methods, they have object-oriented, they have libraries, you can import libraries, and they have wide range of libraries as well. So just if you understand this, and you moved, for example, to another company or whatever, for example, now I'm using Golang at my current organization while it was my first time to use Golang. So I will relate things together. I know that there is something that will allow me to import. For example, in C#, we are using keyword to use a library. In Java, I use import. Similarly, in Golang, it's import. So you know the concept. Maybe now when you build your application, you will find a missing library in your dependency. So here you will know how to catch it, but you shouldn't be an expert in development. But if you can do it, do it. I mean, you got my point, but it's not obligatory.
Yeah. So Abdelhaim, would you like to add any comment, or do you have?
No, like Mahmoud covered it all, actually.
Okay, for me, just one point here again, as Mahmoud said, you learn the basic, for the programming, but the most important, and the basic here, like function, how to call function, how to create a function, and it's just the basic. And then once you understand the basic is to understanding the component of the programming. And when I'm talking about the component of the programming is, like how I have the library, how I reference the library, how I use the library, how to distribute the library. This is the most important part. So, and this is usually the part where people are struggling. For example, some people learning programming and you go deep for the programming, you don't need to go in depth for programming, but it's just for understanding how the programming is work, yeah. Okay, I think there is, do you have any other questions, Wael?
no, none, please. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Okay, we have another Ifanisa.
Hi guys.
Hello.
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 Yeah. My name is Soy. I'm calling from Sweden. Yeah. I just need your advice. I've been into software development for more than 2 years. I started actually with Microsoft Dynamics solution architecture development, and later I tried to expand on my knowledge base. That I moved to Java, and later to C# to understand programming better. And yeah, so but all along I've been seeing, or I have friends who has worked with DevOps and all that, and I try to explore that option as well. So I am not new to programming, and I've also done some cloud-based examinations and study, like Azure and AWS. So these are not new area to me. So so from here, where do you think I can uh, continue from there? Having programming background, and also I'm also very well grounded in cloud technologies. So what do you think I can do next to become a DevOps expert?
Yeah. Abdul Halim, would you like to?
Yes. As we mentioned earlier here, we have a roadmap in our repo that go with you a step by step. That roadmap are implemented as an agile methodology from Muhammad Radwan that will go a step by step. So, what is the recommendation? Is start studying upon our roadmap, and if you have any problems while go further in modules, you can always ask, and we will always be pleased to answer your questions and guide you at the right direction. So, from what I hear, that you have cloud and that you have programming background. So let's take it to the next step. In module 7 and 8, if we take a big leap to the future that we will have, but you can start preparing right now. Module 7 and Module 8 and 9 and 10 are covering the CI/CD, which is continuous integration and continuous delivery. And
Yes.
our course implemented in a way that your simple code that you started with us, the simple method, you will implement also in the continuous integration and continuous delivery, which is you will have a better understanding about what's going on inside the continuous integration and delivery. And the same aspects also delivered, like if you're working right now in a bigger company, you will do the same step, but you might have like 10 builds a day, 20 builds a day on a different features that you need to test and you need to explore more. If you have a special case, if you have a today a production, then you will have a variety of cases of what you have learned already from starting from the very basic that you started code, a simple method that average, largest, and smallest. Then you take the next step, explore the virtualization, explore the cloud. Then you will take it to the next step, which is CI/CD. Then to the next step, starting knowing what are the best practices about securing your pipelines and so on.
Mm.
So if you follow the DevOps roadmap or the step-by-step DevOps roadmap, it will have a great result in your planning, maybe. And if you go further, you can always have you can always visit our repo and ask any question, and we are pleased to answer them.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. This DevOps what's it called? The the pathways. Are you going to put it on the chat here? The link to the file or to the
Yeah.
material. Okay,
Yeah.
that would be
Yeah.
nice. So Yes, I
Sure,
can look at it
yes.
and
Rehab, one of our team members, she shares a link inside the chat, so you can visit.
also your contacts so we can reach you whenever.
Yes, definitely. You can all find everything on the GitHub repo. You find the link in the
Okay.
in the
Yeah.
chat. Just click, and again, we are happy to have, again, answer question. Just, try to, we have, as Abdul Halim said, we have like, a rules for how to ask the question and so on.
Okay. All
Mahmoud,
right.
do you
Thank you.
have any? No problem. You're welcome. Do you have any comments? Would you like to about?
I have the same answer of Halim. So yes, so like when you go and explore the roadmap and do it practically, things will be different because
Yeah.
it will somehow, from my perspective, it will broaden our horizons in the way because everything there is tried and many people followed it and it made a real difference. This is what I like in this roadmap. And because we are using Agile, so it's also adjustable. Maybe by time you can contribute and, for example, say that this step that you did, for example, that's missing at our end made a difference. So we can also consider it as well. So this is the power of community, and this is like the secret of moving forward very fast and strong. Thank you.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
And one last question before I will hand
Yeah.
over to the next person is, what advice can you give to, for instance, you see a company asking you asking for a DevOps person with say 1 year experience, and you haven't, like, say you're just coming from the school or from training, and you have not really put what you have learned into practice with any company. What do you think? How can someone like me that is about to get to a certain a position or a certain point in my learning DevOps, what do you think I can do to work around that situation?
Would you like Mahmoud to answer?
Yeah, sure. So the point is, this is why the demos here are very important. So the demos, they start from simple and then they are gradually became harder. And by doing this, I also recommend that you can create some projects from your own. I guess Halim here can add good things because I was impressed by some project that he created from his mind, and this is really a good idea. Like to have an idea of a project and you work hard into it until getting it done. So here you will have the practical experience, and I'm just capturing this from Halim. So you learn by troubleshooting as well. Yes. So Halim here can maybe add more details on this.
And before talking to Halim, this is exactly, is again, if you don't have a real experience, then just to build, like a very good repository or community work, so you can share it with your CV. Like, I mean, if you don't have experience, okay, show me what you can do, not just like. And this is why when I talk about, don't create a GitHub repo and just copy and paste things. No, it is not like that. Build something. If I start looking at your repository, I can respect what you have done so far. So, it just, and I will leave it to Halim. He can mention what he has done. Yeah.
Yeah, so as we mentioned earlier, that as a DevOps engineer, you don't have like that great experience or relation to the code itself. So open source is really great experience that you should interact with. For example, there's a lot of open source projects that provide by Microsoft and by Google, and the variety itself, like for myself, I will talk about myself. There is a project called Parse Unlimited that I took from Microsoft repository and start like examine it myself in the CI/CD, applying different deployment methodology like using Terraform, using it manually, using it with automation triggers, tried it with Azure DevOps, tried it with Jenkins, and important part while you doing those projects, you should start learning how to make a good documentation, because a good documentation will represent, instead of like having an empty repo that have nothing to do with the project itself, the documentation that you will present the step by step that you have taken and done, since you cannot, like, let's say for example that you don't have the budget right now to host tons of projects on the cloud to be able for any recruiter that he can test. So and uh, another situation or alternative, that you can make a good documentation with screenshots or short video for each project that you will examine. For example, I have took Parse Unlimited, and it's like a .NET application. And also I have went it further with like Kubernetes. I wanted some advanced stuff with the Kubernetes. So I searched and I found that Google provide an open source microservices application that you can take and start implementing it by yourself. So a lot of resources are available online for the sake of education and learning purposes. So you can search and Google about open source project for education purposes and start implementing them by yourself, doing the CI/CD pipelines, start maybe testing them, perform UI testing if they are like provided in the application. If not, then you can search for another that you can provide, and so on. So this is explain my experience in this part. Like, do a lot of projects, practice, 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 as we said. And as Muhammad Radwan always say, reading 1,000 book about driving a car won't let you to drive that car, because you need the practical experience itself. So in this position, and also you should note that 1 year of experience is a bit deceiving. So if I'm a recruiter and I want serious people, right? So you want to show me a bit of effort that you want this job. So if I have an experience that I'm building projects, let's say I have a free time of doing 3 projects a week. Let's say, for example, to build like CI pipelines and stuff like this. So if I have by 2 months, if I have experience of 2 months, but I have like in my portfolio like 10 or 12 projects, he will at least like give you a talk because of your effort, the effort you have done. And that's what you want. If you pass the recruiter interview and start the technical interview, if you know what you do, you will get the job.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's it.
Thank you. Okay, we have Stephen.
Hello.
There is. All right.
Hello, do you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you,
Yes.
Stephen.
Okay. So I have a question. So I've been trying to play. I'm a junior developer. I don't have currently looking for a job right now, and I just thought about getting into DevOps, and I was just wondering because I've been playing around with a Raspberry Pi, and I've got Docker on installed, and I got Portainer in there as well, because I want to, like, right now Heroku is pretty much charging money, and I want to replace them with my Raspberry Pi. Do you guys have any like tutorials on how I could set up or deploy my Node.js? It's an Express application up there, so that I could showcase it and get rid of Heroku in total. It's a silly question, but yeah.
No. So you mean you would like to deploy the application to the Raspberry Pi?
Yeah, I want to deploy the application to the Raspberry Pi. Right now I have Portainer. It's the community version of it, and I have it in a Docker container, but it was a little bit confusing. I was looking at the documentation and I got confused, and I guess I got stuck. I was trying to get like it was, I guess those Docker file containers confusing, because I wanted to make it so that there are these environmental variables for like deploying from Git.
Yeah.
the problem was that I couldn't figure out how to make it so that I think there's something called a stack, and I just didn't understand it. So, and then whether or not I was supposed to use a stack or just supposed to deploy using just the normal way for the credentials so that they don't show up, so that it's secure. So, yeah.
Yes, actually, I mean, I didn't have the chance. I mean, when I worked with the Raspberry Pi, I was working directly connected to my PC and just deploying that, but I didn't have a chance to have like, an automated deployment. I'm not sure if Mahmoud or Halim has maybe a situation like that. Also, this is, I mean, it's we would like, of course, to help, but sometimes the questions is very related to like a special stack or technology or like an environment, which is in your case Raspberry Pi.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I would recommend, like, I would expecting it will be the same, like it's just a device that has an IP and and if it's running Docker, then it should be the same. I'm expecting it will not be a problem. And this is the beauty of having container, and it will be the same way running on on any platform.
Yeah, because one of the things was like another question I guess I had was like if I mean I tried a couple platforms too. Like for example, I was trying to deploy it on Google Cloud and Azure and AWS. They were all confusing, like in terms of how to go about and do that. So, what platform do you think is like the easiest to deploy besides Heroku? Because Heroku is no longer an option. That's free, I mean. Yeah.
Yeah. I think Azure is really like very easy. You can create an Azure subscription with like, like a credit card with, will give you just like, I can't remember, maybe $150, something like that, with a free for 1 month. So, and just the free, I mean, just to put the spending limit. So this will not charge your credit, and then I think you can do that very easily.
Oh, okay, on Azure?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll check that out.
Yes,
Okay.
please. Yes, and you can always ask him, maybe if we have something like that, we would like to help.
Okay, thank you.
No
But like,
problem.
yeah. So, but I guess I'm sorry to like hog
No,
the
no problem.
spotlight, but like, so if I were to get a junior role in DevOps engineer, right now I just graduated from a boot camp. What would I need to do, like in terms, or what do you think the roadmap would be? I know Node.js, I know JavaScript, I have HTML and CSS and preprocessor. Just wondering what's your thoughts?
Yes, I think this is the same question, we try to answer is you would like to get, like a T-shaped scale. So if you are not joined the session from the beginning, I would recommend we will publish the session on YouTube. So I would recommend looking at that from the beginning. But again, you would learn, cross discipline. So you would need to learn in the testing, in the planning, in the deployment, so it's T-shaped skills. So you need to build skills, in all this area, and then start, again, starting a DevOps engineer in the beginning. I will say the most important task you will be get assigned is make a CI/CD for deploying an application and continuous integration. This will be the first task. But again, as you get more experience, you will be more responsible about, more areas and more, practices and principles. Okay, let me look at the question in the chat. There's a question, say, how strong is DevOps related to cloud? Can we have a DevOps without using cloud? What do you think?
Well,
Yes.
yes, okay, go first then.
Okay, would you like to go first? Fine.
No.
Okay, that's
Mike,
fine.
you-
So, yeah, thank you. So the point is, we are automating the application building, the application. Like for example, let me give here an example. So you are automating the end-to-end deployment to any environment. So if you have bare metal server, you can deploy there. Okay, if you have Kubernetes, for example, you have a local server at your company has Kubernetes as an example. So your pipeline can take the source code from Git when you push your new updates to, for example, master branch or whatever branch. You have now the pipeline, the Azure pipeline or Jenkins or whatever. It will take the code and it will build it and it will run the unit testing, and then it will move it to, for example, image repository like JFrog, or maybe to Docker Hub or local Docker Hub, and from there it will be deployed, for example, to Kubernetes. Whether this is in cloud, whether this is in bare metal, it doesn't matter, because at the end you are automating the process. So where is the deployment? This is configurable. You can configure what you want to fulfill your business need. This is my answer in short. Maybe
Yeah.
so Halim can add more details, or Rodwan.
Well, the question here is a bit tricky. The question is, can I be a DevOps without having the knowledge of the cloud? I guess that's the basic of the question. Not can I have proceed with the DevOps disciplines on-premise. Of course, nobody can argue that you can have your server on premises, but that's a variant from a company to another that every company should. That's like company business, not our business. But if your question is that can you go and be a DevOps engineer without the knowledge of the cloud? I guess definitely not, because on-premises is considered as a virtualization. And as we said earlier in this session, that virtualization is the cloud is like a type of all the cloud is a type of virtualization. So virtualization, no matter what, if it's on premises or it's in the cloud, you have to handle it. So basically, if your question is, can I be a DevOps engineer without the knowledge of the cloud? Sadly, you can't. And as we said, you need to have a T-shaped scale functionality to know at least the basics about the cloud. What is the virtual machines, as we mentioned, what are the containers, what are the component of the virtual machine to configure it. So it's the same. If you configure it on the premises, you need to know what is the VPC, what are the firewall, how to configure them, how to make them communicate with each other. So if your question is as Mahmoud answers, yes, you can use it on on-premises environments, but if your question is related to the cloud in general, sadly it's not, because as we said, cloud is a type or like a type of virtualization. So sadly you need to expand your knowledge to have more, and knowing, like, let's say you don't need to know every cloud platform, like, because every cloud platform is providing the same services mostly. If you go to Azure, you will have virtual machine. If you go to AWS, I guess it's called EC2, and so on. So it's the similar concept. If you learn it with Azure, if you learn it with AWS, and you move in from a company to another, and you're moving from the company that use cloud, and you move to another company that use it on-prem, then it's the same, because you will handle the virtualization yourself. You build it on a bare metal, then you build virtualization on top of that, and so on. So I hope that answered your question, and I will hand it to Muhammad if he add more comments.
Yeah, for me, it's just, I think, yeah, as I mean, I agree with you. I think just one comment, like the main idea of having the cloud, is that, I mean, you can work as a DevOps engineer, or you can implement some of the DevOps practice, when you have on-premises server or solutions. But, the main idea of the cloud is, the ability to replicate environment, create environment. In the cloud, we just create environment like that. You run the pipeline, it will provision new environment. But on premises, replicating the environment, this will be like a challenge. So of course you still even using infrastructure as code on premises, but this will be like, it will be like, like investing in something that you will understand that after sometimes it will not be available. So I will say just the cloud is part of speeding the DevOps, but having a DevOps without the cloud, yes, but I will say it's just partial DevOps. It's not a complete, or that's it.
And sorry, I can add also one small thing. So
Yeah,
it's non-technical.
sure.
It's non-technical since it's covered technically. So now most of the organizations are moving to the cloud. So if we don't have the proper experience in the cloud, this would affect our value in the market itself. So this is why we need to be ready for such you can say evolution in technology.
Yeah. Okay, no problem. So is there any other questions? And I think we don't have any other question in the chat. Steven, say if I feel like if you can master CI/CD, you can manage the cloud easily. Yeah. Yes, I think that's it. Okay, Rehab, here is a link for the feedback. Yeah. Okay, that's Rehab also share the link for the feedback. We would really appreciate your feedback about the session, what you would like to hear, maybe what we can improve. I think maybe that's it. So again, thank you so much for joining the session today. Thanks for our contributor, Mahmoud and Halim for this great presentation. And we are looking forward for everyone to join our future session. That's a great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.